extensively so. I mean, I've never done anything that is almost 3 months long. So when it's all said and done, I'll finally be home mid-May.
Okay.
But I've done I've done a couple week-long runs. But again, yeah, nothing as extensive as this, which has been since the beginning of March. We started in the Midwest, went through Tennessee, Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and then we finally hit the coast in San Diego about 3 weeks ago, and then snaked our way up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 months is a bit of that's a trip. That is a commitment to go out.
Oh man, yeah, I miss my dog. Um, my girlfriend's pissed. it's There's a lot that goes into the tour life, and it's absolutely possible to still have a family and raise kids, have a dog, have a girlfriend, that kind of thing back home. But you do have to be used to traveling. And like when my band and I were putting our lives together before the run, like before we left Nashville. um, I mean, there's so many things to consider. Like, okay, you're going to be gone for 3 months. What does that mean? What does that entail as far as your rent, your responsibilities in the community, you know, um, taxes? I had to file a tax extension 2 nights ago because I was like, "Oh, crap, here come the IRS," like, reminding me that I need to file tax. So I can't do taxes from out here. I don't have any of my stuff. So it's a lot to get used to, but it's fun. And I hope that I've been saying you live and you learn, right, on the road. So, I mean, there's been a bunch of things already that, depending on the city or the community we're in, that you learn from it, and hopefully it makes you a better person. I mean, a better, like, musician and artist and all that, but hopefully it makes you a better person. So we're pretty far from home, but we're grateful.
Well, it's gotta be an incredible experience, right? I mean, you're going to these different parts of the country and seeing a wide range of people and
Exactly.
getting to play your music for them.
Exactly. And I think one of the goals is to, in despite it being in so many different communities, is we try to find that thread of your fans and your audience and your listeners, and whatever that thread is, we try to connect it. So, like, yeah, I mean, we started out in Indiana and Kentucky, and then we're in Texas, and now we're in NorCal. Um, Completely different cultures, and uh, backgrounds, and folks, a completely different fabric. But the folks who come out to our shows, I mean, for the most part, like, we play folk, Americana, country. So the message of most of my content and songs are you have are all story songs for the most part. So the message is like, okay, you have a you have a life, one good life, and hope you make a good story out of it. Um, so all the folks that we've met out here, we're trying to build a community, right? We're trying to get folks to come out here, even though we're a long way from Tennessee, that would still enjoy our music, regardless of creed or background or race or religion, right?
That's gotta be really gratifying in a way where you're from Tennessee, you can write this music, and you could go anywhere, and people can relate to the story that you're telling.
For sure. In Nashville, there's the hugely commercialized aspect of the music industry, which is what most people would refer to as pop country, which is enormous. It's a moneymaker, right? But I work in a small record label, so our resources are limited, but we have, I mean, essentially complete creative freedom. Um, but then when you start to build, it means that you have to do multiple things. Like, you can't just rely on one manager to do everything that a whole team would, of a Luke Combs or Morgan Wallen. They have entire departments that handle their socials. They have entire departments that handle their touring. So that's part of living and learning too, that we're experiencing, is like, with a small record label, essentially a mom and pop. You have to do a lot of things yourself, and I've been accustomed to that. I came up in restaurants, um, and if you weren't pulling your weight, or picking up slack, then you're going to get left behind, and you don't want to get left behind in the restaurant business. So, or in anything.
Yeah, in
So
life, right?
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, even with the industry, the giant machine of Nashville, pop country, um, we found our niche for sure.
The industry of music kinda seems scary in a way, right? Because you almost give up your control to hit that level. When you're a part of this giant record label, it's
Mhm.
almost like you lose a little bit of your voice in that because 'cause you've got this giant engine pushing behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's pros and cons to both, right? I mean, you have a giant engine pushing behind you, you can go places. Um,
A little easier too, because you
yeah,
got that thing like, "Okay, we're gonna go in this direction."
absolutely. So if you're down to play the game and if you're down to adhere to their sort of their vibe and their atmosphere and their intent, then your agency will match theirs, and then sky's the limit. You have unlimited resources. You can buy a tour van like that. You can hire a band like that. You can you can make you can make thousands of dollars worth of merch right away. But for us, it's like, all right, we have to we have to be very careful with our resources. We have to budget very accurately, and it comes down to the penny.
Has that been kind of a learning lesson? Learning how to partition out your resources where it is just you guys running the show?
Right. I mean, it's a small business. I mean, just like any other, it's a small business. And I mean, we've all, my band, myself, my managers, my label, we've all invested, right, in different ways, time, money, resources. We've all invested. And it takes years for some of those returns to start poking out again and coming back. But it's happening. Otherwise, it's been my fifth, sixth year cutting records and writing songs like, and putting it out commercially. So like, you know, if if we weren't getting signs that or signs of affirmation that this was going to be feasible, then we probably would have not had the opportunities we've had the last couple of years, right? And the opportunities have presented themselves and they keep coming. Somehow we've managed to make it out all the way to the West Coast and play shows in San Francisco, Berkeley, LA, San Diego, and have 50, 60 people show up. And I've never been out here in my life. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a
Wow.
significant accomplishment, right?
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, and of course, like, there were a couple nights we played to 15, 20 people. It just depends on where you are. It depends on the marketing, and it depends on the day of the week. If you're playing on a Monday, Tuesday, in some tiny little forest town, you're probably not going to get a lot of action. But if you're playing in Berkeley, San Fran, we had a party on those nights for sure.
How was the show up at HSU? Came in saying it was a pretty good time.
Yeah, yeah. Those guys, they had reached out to us about a year ago, and we'd had ambitions about coming out west, but there's a lot that needs to happen for it to be feasible. So we ended up hearing from yeah, the Cal Poly folks, and they said, "Hey, can you please come out for this summer or kind of spring summer event that we have going on?" And they had a pretty good budget put together. So we were like, "All right, you know what? This could work." So we ended up just throwing some other dates on, some other venues, and then I had a booking agent that knows the Texas, Arizona kind of area, and he booked about a month's worth of shows through that. So we ended up tacking it all together, and I've been on the road for almost 2 months. So yeah, it's been a blast, honestly. Like apart from a break in, we had a break in in the van in San Francisco. That sucked, but
Shout out to San
that's
Francisco.
that's part of it, right? That's what I've understood. Nobody's surprised that happened to us, um, and then we had some weather yesterday, just getting in over one of the peaks coming down, but we made it, in one piece. So we're just trucking along, man.
That almost adds to part of the fun of tour life, I would imagine, is you're out on the road and who knows what's gonna happen.
I mean, yeah, you pray for smooth sailing. You know, you're hoping the gods of rock are looking out for you, right? But um, I mean, we're pretty experienced, and we're at a point like I'm gonna be 33 this year, so like I feel like my haphazard um, risk taking party days are mostly past. So and my band's the same. We're all kind of in the same boat as far as that goes. So yeah, I mean, maturity I think is an important part, and respecting the whatever community you're in, like getting understanding um, the nature of the vibe of whatever town or city you're in, so that you can move fluidly through it and not get into trouble. But once in a while, shit happens.
Yeah, and move fluidly through the tour because if you guys, shit hits the fan when you're on tour in a city and then you don't make your next date,
You're
kinda
done.
yeah, it screws everything up.
Yeah, I mean, then that's what's so important about riding out here is like so many great venues near each other. But once you get the farther north you get, the more spaced out they are. So, I mean, days where we only have a 2-hour drive. and we get to load in early and take a break and hang out before our set, amazing. Um, there are days where we wake up, we drive, and we're immediately loading in and playing, and it's a pain in the ass, but it's our job now, right? This is what we do.
How did you first get involved in music? I know that your mom was a pianist and that kinda influenced you a
Sure.
little bit, but when did you start thinking, "Okay, maybe this is something that I could do as, like, the rest of my life," type thing?
Professionally, I mean, my buddies and I were in every band possible. Like, so growing up, I mean, I was in church choir band. I was in jazz band at school, pet band, concert band, garage bands, all the stuff. And I was I was with some kids who were really talented in Nashville, and in high school even we were getting gigs, playing at say our friends' parents' parties or events, um, or even playing for like the local college or school, talent shows even. And we were, we're doing enough to where every once in a while we'd make a few bucks, and it's like, okay, cool, like this is fun. Like it didn't think we'd ever make a couple bucks doing this, but we're just over here jamming, in somebody's garage. And then I went to school for music, and I was I wouldn't say burnout, but I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to be a concert pianist the rest of my life. So I ended up dropping out of music school, and I went to Indiana and studied journalism, literature. Learned how to, I guess, communicate better. Learned how to read and write better, and that all lent itself definitely to songwriting. And I started to write more, and I started to write, I guess, with a little more thought. Uh, and it's funny because you drop out of music school and you're like, I need it. I want distance from that. And the second I moved back to Nashville, I'm joining all the bands that are available. I'm playing piano in people's bands. I'm writing my own songs still. And my buddies and I in town had a pact that like if by the time we turned 30, like if there wasn't any promise of anything, like we would going on like a business together. We'd start a restaurant or like um, have some sort of other project that we could fall back on, or even go back to school maybe. And I was playing at a tiny open mic in town, a place called Tennessee Brew Works, and just a tiny little hole in the wall brewery. And uh, this gentleman named Alex Torres was there eating dinner with his family. And this was like one of those places. So I don't know if they have a lot of open mics out here, but in Nashville, they're super popular and there's tons of them. So this is a Monday night, and you go in at like 3 or 4 o'clock. You sign a piece of paper um, that determines the order of who gets to play. So we used to do this every Monday, my buddies and I, or almost every night of the week. But every Monday we'd go to this brewery, and you only get to play like 2 songs. So I was like, I played my 2 songs, and then after the show, after the night, Alex comes down and he gives me his card, and he owns a record label, and he's interested, but I don't know him from, anybody. And I was just like, all right, so if you're interested, come out to the next show. So like he came to the next one, the one after that, and I started having some showcases, some proper shows instead of just 2 songs at a time. So he came out and saw one of those where I played like an hour with my dobro player, and he said we should cut a record. So he just gave me a really basic record deal. And we split the profits of everything, 50-50. But he provides the front money to like go into a studio and hire players and hire engineers and all that. And that was Farmland, which was my debut record in 2019. And since then, Alex Torres and I of Torres Music Group, we've cut 4 records together. And yeah, we're just rocking.
Well, how crazy is that? He's just there in the crowd.
Yeah,
Says, "You know what? I think we should do something."
he would definitely call himself an artist developer, because he was a drummer for many years in the 90s, in the 80s. He played with Tracy Lawrence, he played with Leon Russell, and then when he came to town, he was raising his family in Nashville. He got a he got an office job at Gibson, at Sony, and then something happened in his life to where he had a few changes, and about 10 years ago, he just opened up his own shop. So he's looking for artists to develop. And there were a couple other artists on his roster, some Texas artists. And so he's a guy that definitely always has his ear to the ground. Like since I've signed with him, He signed a couple of my buddies. We've together gone in and partnered up and signed some artists that and songwriters that we think have promise, right? And I love producing too. I love being in the studio just in general. It's so much fun. And when you're working with talented folks, which Nashville has just tons of, like everywhere you look, it makes your job easier as a producer. You know, you kind of just get to, I guess, give them a little bit of direction, but you don't need to tell them to do much because they can always sing or play their pants off. You know, like it's insane. So I've been working with Tor's music group now 5 or 6 years. I've been trying to produce a little bit on the side, but continuing to write my own songs and cut records.
That's what Nashville's known for, right? I mean, if you're gonna go anywhere for music, it's gotta be that spot.
Yeah, Nashville's changed a lot. I mean, everyone's probably heard like it was like one of the top towns like that people were moving to in the last few years. It's a completely different town than the one I grew up in, but it is absolutely still like it's music town. Like you want to be there if you're an artist, if you're a songwriter, if you're looking to be motivated, challenged, and inspired, you should spend time in Nashville.
Different from the town that you grew up in the sense that it's more musically inclined or less?
Uh, it's I would say probably more. I mean, just because of the volume of labels and artists that are there now. Um, but the legacy of songwriters and artists that have cut records and recorded and been broken in Nashville, like you know, come out through the Nashville scene. Um, you know, the list is incredible. And and I say different town as in like, well, it literally is like, you know, there's new streets. It's bigger. There's uh, entire developments and neighborhoods and communities that weren't there 20 years ago, right? So it's the progress, right, of a city in the midst of change, which there's pros and cons to it. There's a lot of fun with it. Like I bartended downtown for many years. I profited from that change, right, in a lot of ways. But at the same time, you know, I've been stuck in traffic behind a bachelorette pedal tavern party, just like late for work, you know, um, and that's just a small like you know microcosm of what is good and bad about a city's growth, but it's inevitable.
Yeah, and that's gotta get pretty old fast, right?
Mhm.
You're trying to get to work or trying to get home, and everyone's out there just partying, you're
Just
like, "Okay,
traffic.
guys, let's speed it up a little
I
bit."
mean, it's fun. Like you know, I can't lie. Like if we ever have in Nashville as a destination town, we have people from all over that visit, and if we have friends from out of town that want to come in, there's always something to do, right? There's always a, I mean, besides the Broadway mess, the honky tonks and stuff, besides the tourist stuff, there's amazing venues. There's great food if you know where to look. Coffee shops, restaurants. There's great parks. There's great hiking. It's a very diverse town, more diverse than it gets credit for. People here in Asheville, they think, um, yeah, barbecue, hot chicken, bachelorette parties, and it is that, but it is so much more.
Yeah, you just gotta peer beneath the surface a little bit, do
Absolutely.
a little digging.
Absolutely. In any town, like we learned that too when we're traveling. If we ever get more than a couple days in a place, um, we're always looking for the hidden away dive bar or sushi spot or you know whatever it may be.
Does being away on tour and traveling and seeing these other areas, does that help you write your songs? Because it seems like you do have that kinda dichotomy of loving Nashville and being torn with it, and that kinda comes out in your music.
Yeah, absolutely. Being inspired by trying to stay inspired is the constant work of a writer, of any artist, right? Seeking inspiration, knowing where to look for it, or just being open to it. So, I mean, everywhere we go, I mean, this I have a record that's coming out in July, and everywhere we go, we constantly meet new folks all the time, and so every once in a while, be in a conversation with somebody, just like a complete stranger, and I'll hear about their life story, right? And like, there are times where I'm like, I've got to load out, I've got to go. Like, sorry, I can't stick around, but I do enjoy like when if I meet a rambler, I will let them go and just like tell me their life story. Or if people are dealing with stuff, like as a bartender, I've felt that as well. As like you know, you meet folks who are just looking for some sort of connection. What you know, they're lonely, whatever it may be, or they just have something they need to get off their chest. Uh, and so this next record that's coming out, is built upon the stories of my work experiences, my family and friends, and the experiences of folks I've met just traveling. And a lot of them are profound, heartfelt, pretty sad. But I'm moved by that because I think it's incredible that folks have these stories that they need to get off their chest or they're experiencing something and they're like, man, one of them is like an Uber driver. One of them was an Uber driver in Arizona, and I was visiting my girlfriend. She was working out there, and this Uber driver just like opens up about her last like month with me, and it was just crazy. And so that became a song for this upcoming record, and it's a record. It's called "Drink the River," and it's about shared experiences, the shared human experience.
Well, I think that feeling of wanting connection is a very human emotion, you know? I think a lot of people can relate to that, having been at one point or another feeling like they don't have anyone that they can just confide in or reach out to and say, "Hey, this is going on," or
Yeah.
find that emotional connection with.
Yeah, I think my goal too with that was exactly what you said is like people are seeking connection, but at the same time, like, we live in a society now where here in the states at the very least we're more connected than we've ever been, but it does feel like there is a lot less common ground than there used to be, which I don't know why, but it feels like they'd be working together, but they're actually working against each other. It feels like kind of so. Um, I feel like if I have a responsibility as an artist or songwriter to be inspired, it is to be inspired to share other people's stories and say, bring communities together or bring a thread through a community. So, like, I have this song from Marigold, Mississippi, about a young couple who was about my age, who's the husband and wife. The wife passed away recently, and the husband, yeah, they'd come to my shows, and the last show I went to, I played in Missouri or Mississippi. Sorry, the last show I played in Mississippi. Husband came out and told me that she'd passed, and it was shocking, and so I was inspired by it and wrote a song about it. And I think by doing so, I've sort of captured their experience, that brief human experience in a vial or a bottle, and and that way, when I play it and sing it in New York, Texas, Indiana, California, I'm bringing a little bit of their story all the way from Marigold, Mississippi, out to wherever it is I'm going. And the same will happen, elsewhere, like that story in Arizona, or folks I've met out here. Like if I sort of capture the essence of the story they're telling, I can sort of build on that common ground a little bit more because the most common ground we have is our shared human experiences, our emotions, right? Hurt is hurt, joy is joy. It doesn't matter if you're red or blue, right?
And everybody knows that feeling.
Everybody does. I think s- uh, some folks refuse to, I guess, acknowledge that shared human experience is something that they're a part of. I guess they want to say they want to distance themselves from that and say, well, I still believe, regardless of whether or not we all are the same in a lot of ways, I still want to hang on to the differences because the differences make me feel better or something. I don't know, or more powerful, maybe that is.
Yeah, the idea that we're all more connected today, and yet it feels like we're so much less connected at the same time. More connected in the sense that you could reach out and touch anybody now. Doesn't matter where they are in the world, what they're doing, what language they speak, you can reach out and in a sense, you can touch them.
Mhm.
But it doesn't feel like anybody actually knows anybody anymore. They just have this perception of people, oh, you fit into this box. I know all about you now without ever talking to you. Or, oh, you do this thing now. I know everything about you. It's like the human aspect of like really understanding somebody is lost
Mhm.
when it's through that medium of, oh, this screen or through the phone.
Yeah, I think it's an attention span thing,
That's huge.
and then because of that, folks have, I guess, a quicker tendency to judge, right, or to say, "Oh, I've already compartmentalized this personality, and that's how I'm going to understand it because I only have so much bandwidth in my world because of shit like this, because of our computers, our screens, our phones." And I love my computer and my screens and my phones so much. I rely on them every freaking day, and I use them as tools and entertainment. But not, and this is absolutely not a we should blow up our TV, John Prine sentiment. This is much more of like, okay, look, if we're how do we use this to our advantage? How do we connect better through it, right? And how do we say, okay, like if we don't have necessarily a common background, like can we at least share a brief experience in this moment of this song or this book or this movie or this show? Like, can we at least connect on this? And that can be our common ground. That can be where we start.
And that's one of the beautiful things about music is that it's almost this unifying factor
Yeah.
in people's lives where you can have differences, you can have disagreements, you could not like somebody or not like who they are, and yet you could both love this one song
Yeah,
and
it's
it
very
brings you guys
powerful.
together. Yeah.
Very powerful. And then you get the craziness of like do you love an artist's music, but do you agree with their political beliefs? And then you get into an issue of people say uh Brent Cobb has a great song called "Shut Up and Sing," right? Like people will tell artists, "Hey, like I love your music, but all the political opinions or religious opinions that you're expressing through your stage, your soapbox, or like Twitter, is I don't agree with, but I'll still listen to your music." But some people can't get over that. I mean, we got the cancel culture now. So like, and that, we call it cancel culture, and that's kind of like triggering. But like, people have always done this. People have always said, okay, like this company doesn't support something that I support, so I'm not going to use their products, or or this artist or this politician, right? I mean, there's a dichotomy that's already in place there. It just keeps on resurfacing. So I think it is incredible when people listen to artists that they don't necessarily agree with. That means they're trying at least, in some way to bridge a gap, right?
Well, and the idea that they shouldn't be allowed to have a voice or to say something that's not in their music is just kind of weird.
I know, I
Like
know.
everyone else gets that power, we can all say whatever we want, and then we're gonna artists. It's like no, you need to just perform. You need to be this
Yeah.
kind of puppeteer and do your thing, and then get out.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous. I think it's a dangerous time. Cognitively, I think philosophically, people are wrestling with a lot. Um, a lot of folks have completely um, dived into certain philosophies, and uh, it can be I'm very slow to take anything on. For instance, like, well, heck, it takes me years to write a song sometimes. Or if like for like 3 or 4 years, I had like the iPhone 3, like, and everybody had like an iPhone 10, and I still had like the old iPhone. Like, I just like it takes me a long time to you know move on to the next thing and accept a new thing in my life. Um, it talking more technology. I have a laptop that I have from college that's 12 years old that I still use. And so, when it comes to ideology, um, I only know what I only know from my personal human experience, right? I can't say what anybody else should think or not think unless they're just being complete dicks and assholes, like unless they're just wrong and killing people or something like that or committing crimes. Anybody else's ideology, I can't judge. But yeah, I guess that's where I guess I would wrap up by saying, don't be too quick to judge. And yeah, if artists, if art, I think artists should have the agency to say what they think and feel. I mean, because as long as it's not incendiary, I think as long as it's not like igniting um,
Or just a hot
anger.
take to be a hot take. Like
Sure,
there's nothing actually backing it. They
that
just want to
happens
say
too.
this.
That
Yeah.
happens too all the time. And I don't know if you've seen this whole Bud Light thing.
Yeah, the Dylan Mulvaney stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What kills me is the fact that people are like shooting the Bud Light cans
Yeah.
and blowing them up. It's like you already bought them. Why?
Oh, it's
What are we
incredible.
doing here?
It's incredible. I mean, you look at folks, you wonder what are you doing? Like, I can totally understand, again, this supporting a brand or a figure that aligns with your views. Most of us do that. But to be a moron about it, like to to purchase like that exactly, to purchase a product, to support them with you're supporting them with your money at that point. But then you're making a show of, I guess, degrading it, publicly. but you've already given them your money. Like,
Yeah, they've
it's
already
so
won.
it's odd. Yeah, it's odd. I don't know. I don't know what exactly those folks, what gets them off specifically there. But again, I can't judge. All I can do is create a community within the space of those 90 minutes where my band goes on, and we say everybody love each other. Everybody understand that everyone in this room has felt hurt, joy, everything in between, and we can all emote together. Like, and I try to say after every show, like to the crowd, I say like, look after each other, be good. I mean, what else can you say? You know?
Well, the Bud Light thing's really interesting too in the sense that you were seeing the backlash come on so fast and so swift
Yeah.
that it turned on a dime. People
Yep.
went from loving Bud Light to now they're like, I'm
It's
never
crazy.
drinking that shit.
It's crazy.
And just in like what, a week period,
Yeah,
it just completely turned on its head.
for sure. I mean, man, like uh, Americans have always been, uh, I guess, quick on the trigger. I mean,
It's a good way to put it.
remember freedom fries?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a crazy moment, right? Or even back with the Colin Kaepernick thing when people
Yeah,
were
yeah,
burning Nikes and burning their jerseys and stuff. It's like, you already bought, guys, what, you bought
sure.
this. Like, you burning it doesn't get you your money back. It doesn't hurt the business.
Yeah, it's
You've
wild.
already paid for your stuff.
It's wild. I think if folks have a very very educated reason behind their symbolism and the things that they're doing, like burning a flag or waving a flag, whichever one you're doing. If you're waving the flag or burning it, if you have a very strong willful intent on and with an understanding about the message that you're sending, that's your freedom. Take it. It's it like because that's what both sides of the line are trying to preach right now, right? Is what is our freedom? What does it mean? Like, it certainly doesn't make sense to me to say I can have the freedom and you can't. But that's what it feels like everyone's been saying on both sides. So if you have the willful intent of, the understanding of the repercussions, then by all means wave your flag or burn the flag, whatever it means. But uh whatever you're doing, whatever symbolism you're seeking to accomplish with that action, there's going to be repercussions. So it just depends. I mean, some people have really good intent with really bad consequences, and some bad people get away with shit. So it's a fucked up world, man.
That's the battle of life.
Yeah.
You're flipping a coin each time you do something. You're like, okay, let's see how this pans out.
Let's see how this pans out. Sometimes it works. Sometimes, I mean, you got look at folks who, if you have the right personality, I think like you take a stand for some things, like the Zach Bryan guy, right? Like he's over here, like he's stirring up a mess. His fans love him. They're militant. They love him. They will protect him with their lives. It feels like they will jump in front of a bullet or a train for him. And so he has the he has the clout to go in there and mess with shit and to call out like Travis Tritt and be like, hey man, like why are you being a dick? It kind of feels like politicians to me. It's like you if you're in politics, you have to be a snake, kind of like you wouldn't have gotten there without being like um, a type A power seeking person.
Well, you gotta lie,
Yeah.
which is the grimy part about it.
Mhm.
Is or not so much you have to, but they all are under the impression that they have to get where like take George Santos.
Yeah. Right.
The guy just lied. It's just
Straight up.
lied about anything and
But
everything.
he's been it's all been uncovered pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like he lied and had a good backstory for the lie that would kind of cover it up. No, just blatant
Yeah.
lies. And
Blatant.
then it all comes out and the guy's still there,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Like, regardless of what side of the aisle you fall on, the fact that you can just blatantly lie,
Yeah.
which we all know they lie, but to do it like that
Yeah.
and then say, you know what? No, the people elected me because they trust me and they want
Sure.
me to do this. And it's like, what?
That's
Nothing you said was
embarrassing.
true.
It's
I would
just
be
embarrassing.
embarrassed. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to go to work.
Yeah, it's just embarrassing. Yeah, how do you live with yourself? How do you wake up and say, "Oh yeah, like you're doing the right thing, man."
But see, that's the other side of the coin. So you have that, which is a guy who undoubtedly knows what he's doing and is doing it for the sole end game of I want to be in this spot.
Yeah.
And then you have the Bud Light situation where I listened to a little clip of that girl talking who is the marketing director or was the marketing person for that campaign. and she was just like, "I wanna make this inclusive," I was trying to branch us out to a new audience, and just it blows up in your face.
Yeah, but I think with anything, because I my buddies on Twitter are who are artists and songwriters. They're the ones who are more outspoken. What always ends up happening is, um, yeah, if you if you sometimes with a truly like inflammatory tweet or whatever or statement, you're going to lose fans, right? You're gonna have people that cancel. You're gonna have people that unsubscribe or block you. But at the same time, you're gonna have a bunch of people who are like, "Oh heck yeah, I'm hopping on this train," and then you gain fans, right? So if we're talking about strictly from uh like marketing and whether or not like you're getting the right attention, well, I mean, yeah. So if Bud Light, yeah, they definitely lost a ton of business, but they're probably gonna gain some business out of it too. You just never know.
Yeah, I don't know if a bunch of transgender people drink Bud Light. I don't know if they're
Maybe they will
maybe
now.
they will now. Yeah, they're like, "You're on our side,
I,
great."
or not even just like specifically that, but like people who, um, you, I mean, in 10, 20 years, you never know how this marketing curve is going to go.
Well, in 2 weeks, it might
Too.
blow over. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how all that pans out with the rubber band snap being that fast. Maybe it'll just correct the other way and people will just forget about it with the attention span being so short.
It seems like people forget about shit really quick these days, right? It doesn't take
You
long.
just gotta be quiet for a couple days,
And
and then everybody just moves on.
yeah, well, one case where that kind of, one case where I was really disappointed in myself. Like, I don't know if you follow any of the Ryan Adams stuff in the last 3 years.
No.
So great artist, amazing songs, very influential for myself and all my songwriter friends. Super talented guy, and he got in trouble with some messages on Instagram, some texting, and there were a lot of accusations from his former wives about his mistreatment of women, and he uh, got caught in a specific um texting issue scandal, and where he was allegedly texting someone who he didn't know the age of, and turns out that she was like 15. And so this artist that is so talented and incredible and an amazing songwriter and has moved a lot of people in a lot of ways, myself included, uh in no time at all he's blackballed from everything. Shows, record labels, like can't even play an open mic. I mean, and if he did what he did, then he deserves that probably. But he it didn't blow over. It like still hasn't blown over. It's been like 3 or 4 years, and I think part of the reason is because he probably actually is a huge. He's been a problem. I think he's been a problem in the music industry for a while. So people were just looking for a reason to say, not looking for a reason. People were ready to get rid of him.
They just needed the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think so. If you create a reputation around yourself, if you don't treat the people in your environment, in a community well, and if you betray their trust time and time again, then there's absolutely a point where they're gonna cancel your ass and you ain't coming back. And I think that's what happened with him. But then shit, we got. I mean, you walk into any store, you're gonna hear Michael Jackson playing on the
That's the crazy
speakers,
thing, right?
and like, look at all the shit he did. And like, one of my favorite country music rock and roll stars, Jerry Lee Lewis. I mean, all the crap that he did. He like married his cousin. He supposedly killed his wives. And he's on country radio every day. So like, I don't know, like, what do you call it? It's not a double standard, but it's like it just depends on your legacy, I guess. Some people make it through, some people don't.
And it almost depends just on how good you are.
Mhm.
It's you can reach this escape velocity where everything you did that was not
Escape
great.
velocity,
Yeah,
yeah,
you move
totally,
past it.
totally, yeah. But man, you just never know. So my folks and I in Nashville, like, it's a pretty small community in the songwriter community. I mean, there's hundreds, thousands of us, but um, we all congregate every single week. I mean, for a lot of people, they congregate every single night, in the same writing rooms or writing spots or bars and pubs. And so we are it's a Nashville is actually a very small town in that way, especially if you're involved in the music industry. So, um, you say or do one thing wrong to the wrong person, um, you got to watch your back, you know. So definitely the goal among my peers in Nashville, as a Asian American in Nashville, I mean, my family has been treated very well. We've been welcomed with open arms. I mean, my parents wouldn't still be there for 30 years later after they moved there if they didn't love it, you know. Um, and so people always we get asked to be in the conversation about diversity in country music specifically because that's the kind of genre we're operating in right now. And a lot of folks are looking for a the story of a victim. When did you experience hurt, and when did you experience prejudice? And I think as a kid, occasionally I did, um, and ranging from like schoolyard silliness to um, experiences of my parents, like in day to day living, like at a gas station or a restaurant, you know, just weird shit. But I generally leave with the my statement, which is like, hey, like Nashville as a community has been awesome, and then the songwriting community in Nashville has been extremely supportive, even though there are very few artists who have the ethnic background that I do. So I mean, I can only say good things about it for the most part.
The the pursuit of the victim mentality is something that really scares me because it seems like there's a lot of cachet in that, and that if you can kind
Totally.
of fit that bill of, "Yeah, I had it pretty rough," and maybe you did, but I mean, maybe people definitely do have it hard,
Hmm.
but there are also people that just lean into that for the social cachet that comes
Yeah,
along with that
social
statement.
cachet, absolutely. I mean, it depends on uh what kind of image and what kind of image you're branding, right? What kind of story you're trying to sell. Because we all are at some point, like all artists, all songwriters are trying to essentially create a story that people are going to buy into. And it's it's funny that usually in country music, it is I grew up in a trailer, right? Like I grew up dirt poor. I grew up knowing what it's like to not have anything. That gen- and that generally gets people like people's sympathy, right?
Pulls on your heartstrings.
And so does the I had a tough time, right? I was disenfranchised. I was bullied. I had to overcome an adversity, right? Um, and I love this dichotomy that there are like artists in pop and hip hop that that they don't they like you see think about a country song. It's like yeah, I grew up in the sticks, poor as dirt, driving daddy's truck, and then you got this like the Latino and the hip hop and the pop singers these days. I think a lot of times they're singing, "I got chains, I got money, I got cars, I got women." Right? I'm living it up. Right? And you very rarely do you hear like country songs that are like, "Oh, I came from a very rich family. Oh, I'm just doing fine and I don't have any problems."
Yeah, I've got this giant trust fund waiting for me back home.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. I mean, Taylor Swift came from a freaking rich family, you know? She sings about her broken heart all day and people love that and she's very good at it. But, she was never disenfranchised, at least not in her foundation as an artist. I mean, she's dealt with everything that more than anybody else has in the music industry for the most part. But yeah, it's like where do you come from? Like, can you be honest about it? Can you be genuine about it? And if not, if you're fabricating a story, if you're telling somebody else's story or creating one, like, what's your intent with that? So when people approach me with those questions about creating diversity and representation in country music, I'm all for it. But like my band, I mean, and my record label, like we are my record label head Alex Torres is from a migrant family in West Texas. Um, my band is made up of three LGBTQ members. I'm an Asian country singer, which is something you never see. we're too busy out here making records and road dogging. Like we're doing this kind of we're doing the work instead of going on social media and causing a row. I mean, everyone has their own impetus and agency and method, right? For bridging the gap or breaking down walls. So whenever we get asked to be in this conversation, I tell them, like, yeah, we our label itself is representation and diversity, and the more that we can push forward together, the more representation we're going to get. Um, I don't need it. I don't need folks. I guess coming down and saying, hey man, like we want to help you because we feel like you have not been treated well. I want folks to come out and say, hey man, we want to help you because we think your stuff rocks. Like we love what you're doing.
That's what I don't understand with that mentality is how could you why would you wanna be the person that's
I don't
supported
know.
because of
I don't know,
X?
man.
Because you fit into this box and they feel bad for that, so they wanna come out and support you. Why not just have it
Work on
be
your
yeah,
craft.
it be your craft and you be so undeniable at what you do that they say, "Well, we couldn't ignore this guy because
Yeah.
he's so good at what he does. He's so prolific at his stuff."
Representation at any level, I think, is necessary. I think it's needed. If we're getting into the conversation about that in this country as a whole, yeah. I mean, it what happened to America the melting pot? Like that needs to come back. That needs to be more of an understood thing. Like that just needs to be ingrained now in our DNA so that we can just get past the fact that there are white people and black people and Native Americans and Asians. Like we just need to all understand that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the representation is like if folks have their own methods, like I said, about uh, branding, marketing, getting attention. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes that's really good. Like if you have a catchy story, whatever it is, whatever story it is that you think is gonna help folks hop onto your train and get you the most attention. If it is helping push, the limit of people's acceptance um, and appreciation for just diversity as a whole, I think that's generally good. Absolutely. Um, it's just my method and the method of the folks I work with, my label, my bandmates. Um, we're I guess it's just a little more understated. Like we let the songs do the talking. We let the work speak for itself. Right.
Well, I don't
Um,
feel like that's understated at all. I feel like that's the foundation of how you bring about whatever change you're working
sure.
towards,
Yeah.
is you at some point, what you're doing has to be able to speak for itself.
Yes.
Otherwise, the door never opens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have uh I've been around folks in the industry who yeah, like can't can't walk the walk, but they all they do is talk, right? So like if you have to be able to back up your you have to have some substance, right? To whatever flag it is you're waving. You better be able to back up what you're saying on both sides. Absolutely.
Has that been something that's been difficult for you to navigate? Where you guys are, you're kind of in the public sphere, you're touring, you're putting out this music.
Yeah.
Has it been a challenge almost finding your voice off stage and what that might mean when you do go back on stage? Saying
I've
the wrong thing or upsetting somebody that maybe is in a position of power that could
yeah.
influence your trajectory?
I'm careful about what I say for sure. You have to be. But I'm not a I'm not a Twitter fiend. I don't just I edit my thoughts. And I think that comes from the journalism English lit background, like what I said about communication, like learning how to communicate better. That like I think that's what I mean. It's like I sit with my thoughts, I edit them. Um I will delete a I will write a post and delete it if I don't like it after a couple of minutes. Um and also I kind of enjoy taking a step back and really assessing like what message we have to say. Um, and a lot of times you can say stuff, but you can't take it back. So I'd rather form uh, a great message and have and continue to form it. Like I don't know exactly where my career and what what impact my songs will do in the long run, because it's only been 3 or 4 years, or about 5 years since the first record came out. But like if I can form my message and my intent in my career to a point and sharpen it over time, it will get to where it needs to get. It'll accomplish what it needs to, instead of just firing off willy nilly and hoping that something lands. So yeah,
Yeah, the ability to be intentional with your thoughts feels like a lost art, and to just have the initial thought and then take a second and process
no,
it
no
before you
kidding,
just throw it out there.
no kidding. I mean that's what I do as a songwriter. I was joking about how it take years to write, and I do. Um, I often, like most songwriters, I'll be in the car or at work or at the gym or just something cooking, and I'll have an idea. And in Nashville, there's a process of songwriters, which is a very quick turnaround. It's part of the big machine. It's part of the contract that publishers have with their songwriters on their publishing labels. So um, there's essentially a quota, right? Like you need to have this many songs every month, um, because songwriters work on essentially like a stipend, right? So they get maybe 20 grand, 25 grand for a year. That'll help them like get out of the restaurant business or get out of Ubering, and so they can actually take time to write. But then you then when that happens is you receive a quota essentially, and you have to match that. So there's pressure to write. So some people write out of pressure, which is great, like because they can create and they are told that they need to create like on the spot. And for some people that works really well. And then for myself, I know that being told to have something by the end of the week, that's a piece of art. I would say it's probably not going to be as good as it would be if you'd given me a year or 2 years or three, right? So uh, I've never done a publishing deal. I've only worked in a record label to where that I just have all these songs and I present them, and Torres and live with them live with them with our producers and share them and as work tapes and say, okay, where do we think these songs should go? What direction can we accomplish with this record? And then on my own time, I'm living with these songs in my head and constantly letting them marinate, to see what's the best story or message that I can make out of it. And sometimes it just happens on its own. It's not like I'm intentfully like I don't have a freaking formula. I don't have like a textbook about how to write songs. But I know I don't want to be part of a contract that says I need to write like 100 songs every year. So that going back to like willful intent in your message and your thoughts, yeah, it's just kind of a process that is ingrained in my lifestyle already. Like that's the way I operate. I know I'm not going to go spouting off on something I don't know anything about. Um, and that's part of being careful about what you say. Like where I am in a public sphere, uh, and I have family that I care about, and I have like my girlfriend's family. Her background is the opposite of mine. Like our upbringings are completely different as far as party lines, but like class wise and education wise is very similar. Like growing up in the South, so I yeah, you got to be anywhere you go. You got to be careful about what you say. If we're in Texas, um, there's songs that I'll play that I won't play in New York. you know, like there's some messages that I think I save for certain audiences, right?
Do you think it sucks that you have to do that today?
Nah, I mean,
That's just part of the game.
I think it's usually it's about, do I think this audience has a sense of humor? Do I think this audience is willing to um, go down this funny rabbit hole of a story, that might use some colloquialism or phrases that they're not normally used to hearing. Um, and again, that's part of developing this community because I hope to be able to develop a community to where I never have to censor or be worried about what song I play. If I just have, it doesn't matter if it's California, Texas, New York. I just have a Gabe League community that shows up for it, and they know what to expect and they know what to hear, and they're gonna laugh with the funny songs. They're gonna cry with the sad songs. So yeah, But right now, yeah, I mean, I'm a very careful person, so that's what I mean to say when I say like sometimes certain communities I'll play a song and then other ones I'll save it. Right?
Well, I can relate to that. I mean, there's sometimes I'll have a guest on here and think, okay, maybe we don't go into this realm
Yeah.
because it'll just devolve into chaos.
Well, you have to be. Yeah, you have to be kind of cognizant, right? Like, I mean, I'm an observer, so I always take stock of what the crowd looks like or appears like, or what zip code am I in, what state am I in, right? That you have to take those things into account when you travel as much as we do, and are entertainers, right?
Yeah, because you don't want to go up there and then your first song, the audience is just turned against you, and you guys are like,
Yeah.
well, this
Well,
is going to
that's
be
the
a
point.
problem.
That's the point as of being an entertainer. I want to entertain. I want to give folks the best show they can possibly get out of us. Short of juggling fire. So like, I'm just I don't want to have any inflammatory issues among my community. My community is going to be one when it's all said and done that when they're at the venue, they look after each other. They find some common ground.
I think that's a good goal to have
Yeah,
with your music. If you hope to achieve anything,
that's all I ask.
that would be up there.
All I ask.
It's for all the shit that social media gets, I would have to imagine it would be beneficial to getting your music out there in some sense, right? Because more
Oh
people
yeah.
have access to it nowadays
Yeah, we rely on social media heavily. Absolutely. And all the venues do too. Like
for promotion and stuff.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how we access and find out information about tour schedules, song releases, collaborations, announcements. Everything comes through social media now. So, I mean, it's it's something that we just all depend upon, and there's no going back now.
Does it feel like it's easier to make it now because of social media? Because you could just have a viral TikTok and then people are aware of your music?
Yeah, it depends on the content. Depends on how the I guess the life expectancy, like how long can this content survive? Because like yeah, you can go viral on TikTok, but can you sell tickets? You can get millions of views for an Amy Winehouse cover, but can you play 2 weeks worth of shows in a town you'd never been in and make money? That's what matters.
Yeah, that's the most important metric.
Yeah.
Is are people going to show up for you if you're around?
Yeah.
It's easy to build that online persona and then it doesn't translate necessarily to the real world.
My generation, like I'm about to be 33. Like, yeah, we were on the Facebook and then like, or we were on the freaking MySpace, man. Like, and then and AOL, and then MySpace like was just a weird phase, and then we got Facebook, and then our parents took over Facebook. We moved over to Instagram and Twitter, um, but then like once TikTok really started blowing up, and there was Vine for a little bit, like we were almost too old for for TikTok to be um uh fluent and easy for us. And so like my generation as mid 30s, like we kind of struggle with the TikTok. But I mean, again, it's more about the authenticity of the content you're creating. Like, does it have survivability? Can it last? If you're a musician, can you tour on it? Right? Can you actually turn it into something? Um, yeah, I mean, you can have a like even with like because I've been in restaurants for so long. Like, you have a restaurant promotion that makes a place look really sexy and hot, and like it looks like a place you'd want to hang out. But then you get there, like, is the food any good? Right? Do you have to wait forever for your table? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and with TikTok particularly, people will put songs out and they'll blow up and it'll be big for like a month, and then it
Yeah,
it falls off the wave,
yeah.
and then there's no longevity because it wasn't so much about the actual quality of the song. It was just, oh, this is what's cool right now, and then
Some
it's
we all
gone.
fight. Yeah. By the way, are we able to take a quick break?
Yeah, do you want to take? We could. I don't know how much time you have. Do
I
you
have
want to?
plenty of time.
You have,
I just wanted to hit the head real quick.
oh
Take a
yeah,
leak.
we could take 5.
Okay, cool.
Take us out. Take a breather after a show. Be like, okay, we're back. We're in action. We can take 5 seconds and then we
Oh
got to
yeah.
hit the road again.
It's just nice to sometimes sleep.
That's got to be a big thing, right?
Yeah, because we're always on the move. I mean, the hardest part I've gathered so far, the hardest part is not loading in, playing the show, loading out. It's it's the party and after the show because that's what keeps you up till 2 or 3 a.m. And then you got to check out of the hotel at 11
I'll be back on the road.
and back on it. And so if I was talking about maturity earlier, like, if we were actually more mature, we probably wouldn't, party as much as we do. But uh hey, we're living it up.
Well, it's also about enjoying the experience.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like you're going to all these places. If it's your first time there, you kind of want to get out, hang with the locals, grab a beer, get to see some sights.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely the goal. I mean, in a lot of ways, because we certainly are coming out here to build a community, and yeah, we're gonna play our show and hope people buy tickets to that too. But I've made great connections with bar owners, venue owners, or even networked with people who have resources that want to network and just help us outside of the music industry. Like um, uh, the stuff that I'm doing at its in this sort of like ground roots level where we're cutting all the songs ourselves. We're writing all the songs. I'm sending out all the merch myself. We do all the merch orders ourselves. We design the merch ourselves. That kind of stuff. Um, Folks like us are always on the lookout for um, a break in a sense of like having just an investor, right? Just having folks that are maybe not in the music industry, but like really just have the means and the intent to help. And those people exist out there. We call them angel investors. They exist. And I am not embarrassed at all to say that we are absolutely looking for those because uh, the we have ambitions. We want uh not only my music project but the projects that we're working on with the label that we think are special to really live and survive in this world and not just be played a few 100,000 times and disappear. Um and usually like the secret to touring acts that last for a long time, they got dough, man. They got money.
Well, it's an expensive endeavor, I would imagine. You guys
Yeah,
got to pay for the bus, you got to pay for the gas, you got to pay for
everything.
where you're staying,
Yeah.
you need all your equipment. I mean, it just keeps adding up.
Yeah, and right now, like these days, we're we have certain anchor dates that really solidify the journey and that make the journey worth it, I would say, and worth it by worth it I mean like literally figures wise. Like we have a couple anchor dates that are big paydays for us, and that enables us to um, to play the small venues and the small clubs on the way to those anchor dates where we're on nights where we're only making enough to pay for gas or only making enough to pay for the hotel that night just to get us to the next one, just to get us to the next one, just to get us to the anchor date that is actually going to pay for everything, right? So we had a couple of those in California this year, which made it feasible for us to come out here. But yeah, I mean, you think about the guys that go on 3-month tours in their vans and they have a van for their band and they have a van for their staff and then a trailer with all their production gear. I mean, that takes major front money. So that's hopefully I would hope that eventually we get to experience that because that means we're at least making a little bit of dough.
Well, I think you guys are on a good track, man. You, what is inspirational to me in the sense is you guys' work ethic. It seems like you guys are out here, you're hustling.
Yeah.
You guys are doing this in-house, you're working, you're focusing on your music, and
Mhm.
you're trying to move forward. And I think when people get on that train, it's a sign that okay,
Yeah.
they could do something. It's the people that are like half-assing it, kind of doing a little bit of work here, then they take a year or two off, and then they do a little bit of work, and then 10
Well,
years go by, and it's like, what happened to those
well,
people?
then you
Well,
have nothing then you have nothing to complain about, right? If you're labeled as a like a dabbler, someone who tours like a little bit or puts out a record, every 5 or 6 years. Yeah, I mean, to me, you're an artist, and you're a songwriter. If you write songs, you're a songwriter. It doesn't matter if you take years to do a record, but if you're if you're if you're going to, I guess, um, ignore the trends of the market that is the small business that I'm in the bigger ecosystem of the music industry, and if you're going to ignore those trends and say um, then don't be surprised by the outcome. Don't be surprised if some of your stuff gets left behind if you're not pushing it because you do have to fight for attention these days. Like you do every social media post, every show, every opportunity you have, every every podcast. Like hop on it, do it, even if it takes time out of your day, even if it takes you on a detour from your plans, do it because otherwise then yeah, you're gonna then don't complain about maybe not getting your 15 minutes, right?
The complaining part is the part that I have a problem with because there's a quote, and I can't think of who it's by, but it's, "Don't expect to reap the rewards from the seeds that you didn't plant." I think
Totally.
that's 90% of what life is you gotta put in the work because nobody's gonna come and put it in for you.
Yeah, it applies to everything. Absolutely. And so I think a lot of folks, at least I can only speak for my experience in this industry, is like, well, um, the idea, like, what does success mean to you, right? Um, if success is a few great shows a year, a few million streams, uh, then great, good. That was your line of success, and if anything you achieve past that is even more amazing. Um, if your idea of success is to be the next Luke Combs or Taylor Swift, well, you better be ready to put in the work that they did, at the very least, right? So, what are your definitions of success? For me, I mean, I look at some of my songwriter buddies in Texas. I think they have something great figured out because Texas is so enormous and it houses so many music venues and so many music lovers. I mean, they have a great history of songwriters: Towns Van Zant, Guy Clark, Willie Nelson, Hayes Carl. All these guys have, I guess, essentially helped curate the entire state into being uh, respectful listeners of songwriting. So, some of my songwriter friends out there who are in their like early 40s, mid 50s, um, they all have kids, they all have families, but they have a very sustainable career, which is one that does not require like 3 months of touring at a time. They can go out on weekends and in the middle of the week and play a small songwriter room and get a couple grand, and they can go home to their kids at night. Um, that's I think as a songwriter artist, if you have that sustainability, just that level, I think that is success to me. Um, and I think if I reach that, then I can look at whatever career I end up building and say, okay, at least I got to that point. Um, because then you're actually uh, then you're living as a human being. You have a family, you have a spouse, you have kids. Uh, you're a real person. But then you also get to do what you love for a living. Um, that's very rare,
Is
right?
that the challenge of being at this stage that you're in, is just the instability of life on the road,
Oh
of just
no,
going
not
and
not at
hitting all
all.
these
I
things?
love it.
Oh, you're a fan.
Yeah, I freaking love being out here, man. I told my manager I could do this. I could do this forever. I love this. I don't have any kids at home. I have a dog, and I like to joke. I have a dog and an angry girlfriend at home, and like she understands. Like in my family, they understand. Like my parents, they have supported me as a musician since day one. Um, and we all my support system in Nashville, my childhood friends, they're all big fans, and they most people wanna see um their friends succeed, and most people want to see, especially if it's a hard business to break into. That's even more of a mountain to climb for a lot of folks. So people are definitely rooting for us. Um, and I told my manager last year, I was like, load me up. We hired a booking agent, and I was just like, I want to be a road dog. I want to do this um, because I believe that that's how I'm gonna achieve any level of success is to actually bring the music to people, live music in front of their very eyes and ears. Because, like we were saying earlier, I don't know TikTok that well. I mean, I have one, but I don't use it very much. I use Instagram sparingly, and I'm just hoping that kind of the old fashioned way will ride again, will work. Uh, I don't have I don't have interest in making a viral TikTok video. Maybe it'll happen at some point, like if we get really creative with it, but I just all I can wrap my head around is all I really focus on and love is songwriting. right? And then and playing and performing music live. So that's how I'm gonna make it if I do, right? It's just those things.
Well, and being on the road has the added benefit of you're constantly sharpening your skills.
Totally.
You worrying about creating some viral TikTok is just a waste of however long it took you. Because
Yeah.
yeah, it might blow up. Yeah, you might get some followers and stuff from that, which would be beneficial. But
Yeah.
you're not getting better at your craft.
Again,
Trying to
if
beat that
whatever
avenue.
puts butts in seats, man, whatever sells tickets, that's what I'm concerned with. And so putting on a good show behooves me way more than a couple extra thousand followers on some social media app.
That might
It
get
sounds so
banned. It might not
stupid
even
when
matter in a little
when you
bit.
say it out loud.
Yeah.
Followers. Like, again, hard ticket sales. That's what I'm about right now. Hard ticket sales. Give me and and buy a hat, right? Buy a shirt.
Buy some merch.
Spotify, man. We've done the math a handful of times. 5,000 streams on Spotify is like $25.
Is it really?
It's like a third of a cent per stream.
Damn.
So you will immediately benefit an artist way more if you just buy a record in that moment at a show or online. That that takes buying a record takes 10 seconds. 5,000 streams takes hours, days, right? Crazy.
Well, that's something that we were talking about off air that I think is really cool that you guys do is you guys sell vinyl, which
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of. I think that's awesome. And it seems like that's been pretty good for you guys. That seems like there's a lot of demand there for that.
totally, totally. I mean, we have to, schlep it around. We lug it all over the country, all however many pounds of vinyl it is. I'll tell you the vinyl. I mean, the merch uh, cases that we have are getting lighter, which is really
That's a
good.
good sign.
Yes, yes. But we are absolutely hustling in a way. Like we have like tchotchkes, yeah, koozies, shirts, bandanas, hats, stickers, um, all those things really help a lot when you're traveling and you're far from home. They pay for so much. It's retail. That's all it is.
Are you guys when you set out on tour, do you have a set number of things that you're taking with you in terms of merch? Or are you guys restocking along the road?
We do a little bit of both. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, we took as much as we could load into two like big black travel cases, and then um, we have restocked a couple times when we were in Texas when we happened to be driving by our not only our merchandise warehouse but also our vinyl shop. So uh, we hope to sell as much as we can, but like honestly, that's why we have a merch site online, and so we just hope that folks every once in a while help us out and like snag a CD or something online. That helps too. Um, we have a couple fans overseas. There's a record store in the Netherlands that I have sent two massive shipments to in the last year because I sent them one of like 40 CDs, like 20 vinyl, and they hit me up about a week before I left in March, and they said we need more. So like I'm kind of cutting them a deal because it costs a lot to ship over there, but at least I'm getting the music out, and then hopefully, when I tour the Netherlands, which is coming up in October, when I go overseas to Scandinavia, hopefully that means that people are going to show up.
That's gotta be an exciting feeling.
It's gonna
Is
be
that gonna
great.
be your first time back there?
Yeah, I mean, I had a Scandinavian tour lined up in 2020, and then all just went to hell. But this year, in August, I'm going to be in London, or I'm going to be in the UK. I'm going to be in some like some small town outside of London, playing a festival, and then in October we have some Scandinavian dates that are coming through. So Norway, Sweden, maybe Germany, Denmark, and they have a really huge appetite for folk Americana country out there right now.
Really?
Yeah, huge. So they're um, I've had friends go over and play just like solo acoustic and do really well. Uh, but you have to. it has to be at least a 3-week endeavor out there. Like if you go for a week, it takes at least a week pretty much at these shows to make your money to make your travel expenses. And then the week and the next 2 weeks after that, you're actually making some money.
Well, yeah,
So
that's a significantly bigger investment, right? Going out there than just
crazy. Yeah.
traveling across the country in a
Especially if you
bus.
take players or a band. So
How did you find your bandmates? Were they also from Nashville? Did you guys kinda meet up there
yeah, we met at a bluegrass gig in Nashville.
and just clicked?
Yeah, they became my buddies. We're similar age. We listened to similar kinds of music, and we were at this. There's a group of I call it a dad band. there's a group of folks that hang out in Nashville called the Can't Hardly Play Boys, and it is essentially one of my best friends in high school. Her dad is in this band, and these guys like they just get together the first Friday of every month at a different guy's house, round robin, and they just play old like Bob Dylan, Rolling Stones, Merle Haggard country songs. Um, and we were both invited to one years ago. The My bandmates and I, they were both there, and I walked in, and one of them was teaching piano to one of the other dads there. So we'd all kind of like knew about each other, and finally like got to meet and jammed out. And the next day, I was on one of my favorite hikes in Nashville, which is a 5 mile loop, and they were on the same loop. Like we were going opposite ways, and so we didn't even recognize each other. It was literally the day after this party, and like we walked past each other. We're like, it's just a nod, and then like about 50 yards go by, and then we turn around and we're like, oh shit, like you were at the party last night, and so we caught up, and I hired the dobro player Luciana to come play a few shows with me that summer. And when I heard dobro on my songs for the first time, I was like, okay, this is so perfect. So we've been playing together now, all of us, for probably 4 or 5 years. They have their own band. So essentially, right now, it's myself, and then I have a bass player and a dobro player. The bass player and the dobro player, Rachel and Luciana, have their own band. They're a duo. They're a duet called King Margot, which is like indie pop folk music, and they're great. They just sing like it's a bunch of harmonies, and they sing very tight and beautifully. So it's the three of us right now, and then we have a fiddle player who kind of flies in and out depending on her availability. Um, so in Nashville, Rachel, Luciana, and I, we all actually live in the same house. They own the house, and I live on the first floor, and they live on the second floor. So we are bandmates and housemates, and we that has absolutely been an advantage on this trip because we already know what it's like to live together and be in tight quarters and always be around each other and be around each other's crap. So both figuratively and literally. So out here in an old Chevy van together for 2 months or 3 months, it's definitely a test of friendship. Um, but man, we've made it work.
Well, that's a perfect lead up in that it's not like some strangers that you just met. Like,
Right.
you guys know each other, you're going in,
Yes. Mhm.
you know what to expect.
We're
Everything's
buddies.
everything's fine.
Yeah, we're buddies, and we've toured together here and there before. And they, as their duo, as their band, King Margot, uh, they tour all the time too. So right now, the setup, at least while I'm out here, is King Margot generally will open, so they'll play like 45 minutes to an hour, and then I'll probably come on for like 35, 40 minutes solo, and then I bring the entire band on. Um, that's essentially the run of show, and we keep it pretty much the same because uh, they're my openers, but they're also my backing band. So like I didn't want to like exhaust them as we were out on the road. Um, so they play essentially 2 sets every night. They play their opener set, and then they come and back me up, and we close the set out together. And they all sing and they all play. So when we come back together at the very end, all together, if you've been watching the whole show, you get to see the best of both worlds collaborating. And again, as friends, as housemates, as longtime buddies, uh, honestly, we just have fun, like, on stage, we're just having a blast. Kinda like every time I look over at one of them, I'm just like, "I can't believe we're doing this for money," you know?
Is that a weird feeling thinking about where you started and where you are now? Did you ever anticipate being in this kind of realm where now
Yeah,
you're back west, you're touring, you're gonna go
right.
back to these other countries, and,
Mm.
I mean, it's like these pieces are falling into place.
Yeah, the pieces falling into place is something that everybody hopes for, right? And if it does happen, great. Like, I we've I've had opportunities in the past that were lined up and were gonna be, which were gonna be what I thought was, career changing that either fell through or didn't end up, panning out, right? And everyone had this in 2020. Everyone experienced this, right? There was we probably all had plans that got totally shat on. So, uh, right now, I look at my calendar for the rest of the year that's the busiest it's ever been, which is awesome because I can look at these dates and know business wise I'm gonna be able to say pay rent, right, or afford this trip, and make the next show. But um, I have a saying like that I kind of like my bandmates like and I kind of joke around with, but it's absolutely true. It's the most important show is the one we're at, right? Because we actually made it here. Like we don't know about tomorrow. We don't know about the weekend or even August or October. For me, that's a lifetime away. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen between now and then. All I know is that I'm in Arcata and I'm playing in freaking Portland, Oregon, and I've got to make it to the Portland, Oregon show. That's my prerogative right now. Um, so yeah, like every show is the most important show, and if things fall into place, phenomenal. Like that's what everybody hopes for. And we are. It's been a slow build for myself and my team. So everything that comes through and every opportunity that comes through, uh, we feel like we've earned. Yeah. I don't. Obviously, there's a lot of like sometimes opportunities are a gift and a blessing, and we're grateful for that. But we also operate in a mindset that's like, okay, like we're a small label next to giant labels in Nashville. Like we fight for every stream, every view, everything, every dollar, right? So whenever we get an opportunity that can help us get a leg up closer to those monster labels, we own it, right?
It makes a difference.
Yeah, huge difference. It's small opportunities for small labels mean a lot more to us than it does to the to the giants, right?
And for you guys, I mean, your first album came out 2019?
2019, yeah.
2019, and then you have COVID. How much did that fuck with you guys a little bit where you're kinda getting the ball rolling and then all of a sudden the world just shuts down and everything stops?
Absolutely. I mean, I was referencing, I was alluding to some opportunities that we had that disappeared because of COVID, and some have come back and some haven't. So uh, I, ever since then, I've always operated on, okay, like what do we have in front of us? What's the most important thing right here, right now? We can only control what we can control in our day. And like in San Francisco, we had our van broken into. Luckily, all our gear was already in the venue. Um, but like we can only control what we can control. Like what's the best thing we can do right now is to make sure that tomorrow morning we get the stupid window fixed so we're not driving through the rain and the cold. Um, and I think that was the biggest lesson we got from 2020. Yeah.
Well, that's an important mindset to have, especially doing something that's as chaotic in a sense as touring,
Hmm.
that you've really just gotta take it show by show and
Yeah.
day by day and second by second. You have to live in the moment and do whatever you can to have this moment be the best moment that you can perform in,
Totally.
and then
Yeah.
take the next one as it comes.
Yeah, and also is just trying to connect with the people in that moment too. Like every opportunity we get after every show, selling merch at the table, like establishing a hard, fast, a positive relationship or connection with whoever is coming up and buying a koozie or a hat or whatever, and hoping that like they 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 remember that like it's ingrained in their memory, so that when we come back through they will first of all come back out and see us and buy a ticket, or second of all even better bring friends, right? um, this is what hard touring is about, and Yeah, it's a grind. I mean, it's a grind, but so is everybody else's lives. Like, we don't uh for some people it's just hard to get out of bed in the morning, For some people it's just hard to go to work. Uh we are we live in a very unique situation to where A, we get to do what we love, and B, real, we could just play we could just play around Tennessee if we wanted to. Just did that for the rest of our lives. And it then we would just operate in that realm and maybe never exceed where we are now musically and in our careers. But we've asked for this. We've asked for this opportunity to come out and play 45 shows in 2 months, right? So we have again in a small label creative freedom and control, which feels really good and is paramount. I think for a songwriter that for myself, I want to create my own sound. I'm not trying to follow anybody else's sound. I'm trying to create my own. Right.
Well, that's another direction you guys could have gone. I mean, you could have just been a cover band and stayed in Nashville, and that's all.
Yeah.
That's just what you guys do.
There's
That's
money in
just
that
it.
too,
Yeah.
and it's fun. Like playing down on Broadway, I've done it, and you know, you, there's 4 hour cover gigs, and you're just jamming out, and there's tons of tips, and um, that's one way to be too. It's a big old industry. There's so many different facets of how to do it. So um, honestly, it's kind of what again what you set your definition of success as, and um, and also your expectation. Don't If you set your level of success for something that is extremely high, then be ready for the falls in between. If you set your level of success at just being a cover band player in Nashville, then don't be pissed off that your career is only in Nashville, right?
And that you're not playing your own music, that you're just
Yeah,
playing these other
yeah.
songs.
Then don't gripe. Like
Yeah.
that's your expectation. So, obviously, there's a lot of gray in between that too, because people it's a conniving business. It's a twisted business. There's a lot of people that get taken advantage of, right, in music industry. People with a lot of talent and promise get twisted up in uh, I don't know, just people they consider mentors or maybe like a bad record label contract. You hear about people having to finish out their fourth record because like they promised the company that they would do four records with them, and they just make some like crap record as their fourth record for fun. Um, those kind of situations are hard to foresee, but because when you're in town as a new songwriter or a new artist, you want to take every opportunity you can get. Um, but having grown up in Nashville, I mean, I have a foundation there. I have a support system, and that's made a huge world of difference because I don't feel like I have to. I feel like I'm still in my comfort zone in Nashville, Music City. Like a lot of the bars that we play at are 2 blocks from the high school that I went to, so I'm always home. And that it always it's moving to think that every day someone is packing up their guitar with like $500 and moving to Nashville and trying to make it. Um, that takes a lot of bravery.
Is it hard seeing the people that pack up and head back home after that? The ones that don't make it?
Not
Because
really. I mean,
it's
it's like
just water off your back.
honestly, if you gave it a shot, like that to me is good for the art. That to me is good for music. You don't want people not taking chances in music. You don't want people taking the easy route. You want people like pushing the gambit, pushing the limit, and risking things for music because that means that music still means a lot to people. The fact that they would just
Uproot their life.
yeah, move from who knows, God knows where, like Oklahoma, Midwest, whatever, with no connection to anything, and move to Nashville with a dream. That means that dream is alive and well. That's amazing. Um, People are gonna fail. I might fail. Whoever's on top right now might fail one day. It you know it like it happens. I mean, you get in everything. Think about like NBA stars, NFL stars. You get people who are at the top that end up being irrelevant one day or another. It just happens. Unless you're freaking Michael Jordan, or LeBron James. Unless you've changed the game, like we will all fade at some point. So like, what's the best thing you can do in your short period of time to? And again, your definition of success during that. What can you achieve and succeed? Um, and hopefully, side note, do some good in the world.
And even if you fail, at least you can say that you tried at the end of the day. You don't
Totally.
want to be the guy that has a dream and never tried to even give it a shot. never went out of his way to see if he could even do it or took a chance. You just had this thing and you never acted on it.
That's for me is always the saddest thing. Like it's like a I think it's like a trope in in movies. Like it's like oh, Grandpa always loved to play the saxophone, but he just
Never did
could
it.
never get off the farm. And he still listens to like old jazz records now. Like it's sad, right? But that trope is like definitely something that my band and I fear. Like we're like no, like we're never gonna be that person. We're never gonna be that person that said I didn't at least give something a shot, right?
I think a lot of people fall into that is the scary thing. Because you have to imagine everyone has a dream. Everyone has one thing that they would try to risk it all for. It's
Totally.
just moving out of your comfort zone to actually give that a realistic shot that is the problem. Because if you got a job and you've got bills or you've got kids, the prospect of doing something risky keeps going down. You're like, well, no, I can't
1,000%.
uproot my life because I've got a mortgage, I've got this car payment, I've got these bills.
Responsibilities, man.
Yeah, I've got real things that I need to do, and risking all that for this chance that I would want to take on myself just isn't feasible anymore.
That's why everybody when I moved back to Nashville, I was hanging out in some at some mentors like houses and studios, and I was just getting a vibe for like what my first few steps should be in the industry. And these guys are they own publishing companies, they're producers, they're studio owners, they're songwriters, established. Most of them were my parents' friends or like parents of some of my peers. And every the overarching advice with every single person I met, regardless of whether or not they were in music, was, "Hey, while you're young, take a shot." Because at some point, I mean, that is a valuable thing that you're not going to have later on, right? And that comes with absolutely I don't want to say lack of responsibility, but yeah, when you get older and you have not only job but people to take care of, um, and other things that are gonna, I guess, take up your energy and time. Um, yeah, while you're young, go for it, uh, because down the road you never know. Never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, life has a funny way of moving forward no matter how hard you try to stay stagnant,
No shit,
It
man.
just keeps
Don't
going.
we all know? But sometimes that's good. Sometimes it again keeps you moving. It's got kind of like that machine you're talking about that just like pushes you forward. Like honestly, um, like I have some comfort in that because yeah, I hope there are things that I look forward to down the road, and I we build this career in order to achieve greater heights down the road, and we're hoping that what we're building eventually will become like um a house or a fucking jet plane or whatever it is that is taking us forward, rocket ship. And so that progression of things, like I don't fear it, age or mortality, because I think, this movement that we're doing, like there's something very certain at the end of it, right? And so I hope that in this period of time, it's almost like a test, it's almost like a challenge. It's like, what can you do? What can you do with the time you've been given, right?
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
What can you do with the time you've been given?
Who knows?
And you just don't want to be the person that squanders that at the end of the day.
For sure, because yeah, I mean, I have plenty of songs like that are about how hindsight's 2020, and it's like the nature of humanity. Like, okay, you look back. It takes time and closure and separation to look back and be like, oh man, I was wrong. Because usually in the moment, you think you were right. Um, but I mean, yeah, it's just human nature. So that a lot of my songs are observe human nature, and I hope that like not only can I learn from sharing that message, or even better, folks that come to our shows feel that same way, and then we can connect again. The shared human experience is what I'm kind of pushing on my next record. So
Well, like, again, I mean, it is a crazy life to live when you're doing something that you love. Like that's all you can really ask for at the end of the day is to just to try and chase what you're passionate about. I think that's what everybody wants. And for the people that take the risk and get there, I can't imagine there's anything really quite like that.
and well, yeah, but you got to get there.
That's the hard part is you gotta and most of the time to get there, you have to endure a lot of shit. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna struggle, it's gonna suck sometimes, but it's all in pursuit of this thing that you care about.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I keep my expectations pretty measured. I mean, I have a very base level of where I would love to take the career, and if I can just get there, which I think is not too far away, if I can just get to that point, then I think I will look back and say, I did, we did good, and we I can call it a success because I determine what success is, and if I think that's my level of success, then great. Anything beyond that, extra, love it. If we if we reach heights that I didn't expect, amazing. That's a surprise. That's good, right? Much better than having set my sights on world domination and never getting anywhere. So
Do you think that's intrinsically tied to something like be you know, a career in music? Is you don't wanna overshoot your expectations, you wanna just almost take these incremental steps and then move it.
it's
Like,
definitely
I
the
wanna get here and then I'm gonna take the next one.
it's definitely the nature of the way I operate, but I think that's it just depends on the person, and I think every business has has people that every business has folks that shoot for the stars and fall short or just incrementally, um, incrementally target their goals. It could be anything. I That's just how I am. Like that's my personality, so that's how I operate. Um, but I'm a safe, kind of cautious human being, unless I've had whiskey, which is almost every other day. So,
Yeah. Well, it's funny hearing you say that because here you are doing something that most people would say is a risk in some
yeah.
sense.
Oh, totally, totally, man. I mean, shit, it beats bartending. Tell you what.
Beats a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
Beats working a desk for 40 years,
Oh, heck
hoping
yeah.
you can retire with something.
Absolutely. Not to hate on people working at desks if you're listening to this, it's all good. You
Yeah,
gotta
it's
do
all
what you
about
gotta do.
figuring out what you wanna do. If you wanna work a desk job, great.
Yeah.
But if you wanna do something else and you're stuck in that position, it's a rough ride.
I think after a lot of the COVID bans lifted, that people were um, seeking more gratification, um, uh, just emotionally, spiritually, and mentally than they were about making a dime. Because I mean, so many of my buddies in the service industry, they found other gigs and just were grateful for it because ultimately that meant they never had to go back to bartending or waiting tables or managing restaurants. They found gigs that they could work remotely. And I mean, before 2020, I only had a handful of friends that had the luxury of working from home, and it was like it was mind blowing to me. I was like, "Wait, you're telling me that you can work like while you're traveling on vacation?" Like, yeah, it's super easy. All I need is my phone or my laptop. And how quickly like people's mindset changes because like that was like a kind of a cool coveted thing. And then now everyone's like, "Oh, I have to fucking work from home. Like, I'm gonna kill myself if I have to like sit in my bedroom another day and work." I'm like people. Just be grateful for what you have, people.
It's
Dang
never
it.
enough. It's never enough. It's always
It's
a moving
it's never
goalpost.
enough. But seriously, like the folks that I guess have you still have restaurants these days everywhere that are like saying hiring now. McDonald's is giving their workers like $17 an hour to $500 sign-on bonuses just to come on and work for a month, like um folks have definitely, I think, um, in that time frame where of the sheltering in place and the lockdowns, um, a lot things changed in people's heads, and for better or worse, I do think it is healthy for people ultimately to be wanting to work in something that is gratifying because that means they're going to do a better job of it. Um, Not to say that folks um, who work in jobs where they are just making a dime aren't doing a good job. Means to an end jobs are always going to exist. And I worked a means to an end job for many years, and I worked my ass off, and I did a good job doing it, and I was good at it, and I could have done that the rest of my life. But I needed something more of a challenge, I guess. That's the reason I took the risk.
Well, I think COVID showed a lot of people that the world is a crazy place and that you are gonna die someday. And so if you are doing something that makes you miserable,
You've wasted your
you
time.
gotta figure it out
Yeah, yeah,
because the clock is ticking and you don't know exactly when it's gonna ding.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely uprooted a lot of things. And again, I think for better or worse, if folks are seeking something that gratifies them, maybe it will create a change, not only in this nation but worldwide, that has a new organization of people's skills and passions, and skills and passions are not sacrificed for uh, just money and paying rent. Sacrifices need to be made, but maybe not those. People have to sacrifice work, sweat, blood, tears, like that. That's going to happen. It's the human condition. We suffer in order to gain sometimes, but um, if you're sacrificing, uh, I guess a dream, the a proverbial dream, uh, I would ask yourself to take a step back and say, is it really impossible to do that dream and buy groceries and pay rent? Like, is it really impossible? Because um, shit, we're doing it.
Doing it and loving it.
Yeah, it's possible.
You just gotta get out of the mindset of it wouldn't be you. Everyone likes to say, "Oh, well, the odds are
Yeah,
stacked against you
yeah,
10,000 to 1." Like, do you really think you're gonna be the one? Well, somebody has to be the one.
yeah.
Somebody, because people do make it. Somebody has to be the one to make it.
Sure.
So you almost have to reframe that question instead of, "Do you think it's gonna be you? Why not you?"
Yeah. Right.
And because it's better to go through life thinking that than the alternative of, "Ah, it's never gonna work out for me.
Right.
It's always just gonna be in the drain."
And there's an area, like a testing ground too, of where, I mean, almost every songwriter I know in Nashville has a side job. It's not like you just leave all your responsibilities behind one day and pick up a guitar and do that for the rest of your life and then hope that you ride that train as long as it goes. No, you you take on a certain amount of time and resources that you apply towards that dream, but you don't give up the things that you don't give up your desk job, you don't give up your bartending gig. You have to do something to supplement your dream. You can't just wish on it, right? Yeah, you have to feed it.
Yeah, you can't just hope it's gonna pan out.
No, you have.
Without that goes back to the
Yeah.
whole you reap the seeds that you sow. You
Mhm.
can't just sit there and hope, "Oh, I'm gonna, be this great thing one day," and not do any of the underlying work.
Absolutely. I for a long time, I mean, bartending, you're only making money on the weekends, really. So, but that's when the shows are. So, yeah, for about 4 or 5 years, I was missing a lot of my friends' events, like shows and stuff, missing a lot of showcases, industry events, and then taking as much time as I could on my days off um, to play out and to songwrite and all that. Um, Ultimately, one last big point too about just artistry, I think, is um, I knew very early on that if I was working in an office, if I was working at a restaurant, if I was doing anything else besides music, that I would come home at the end of the day and I would pick up my guitar and I was still going to be playing music. So, whatever that is to you, whatever your wish, your hope, your dream is, like, I mean, you have to live in a certain realm of reality, you know. I mean, I wanted to play in the NFL, but I'm 5'6", bro.
Might be a bit of a challenge.
Shut the fuck up, man. Don't shit on my dream. uh, I wanted to be an athlete, right? I wanted to be a sports star. But like you have to live within a certain realm of reality. So like you have to be honest with yourself, right? Are there aspects of your dream that have limitations? Um, and so the whole like chase your dream thing, like that's bullshit. You have to supplement your dream and you have to feed it, yes, but like you also really need to approach it with some sense of reality. Um, you cannot expect the dream to manifest itself. So I would say that yeah, like you absolutely like take on like whatever ambitions that you have, like let them go crazy, like let them create this world in your mind that you think is possible, and then like start to think about what like what is actually possible, like within your realm of control, like what can I do to actually make this happen, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then see how far you can take it. um and hopefully end up with something that is not only just like something that you can make a career out of, but something that you learn from, and it's something that helps inspire other people. But yeah, I mean, for years there, man, I was just coming home every day from the bar, from working, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I'd be picking up a guitar and playing. So I knew that I was inspired, right? And that's the first big step. Are you inspired by that dream? Yeah, I was, and I knew that in the back of my head, regardless of how old I was going to come home and I was going to be writing songs and playing guitar. So that told me enough to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I should start taking a few more risks, right? Maybe I should maybe I should take 2 weeks off from the restaurant and go play this tour where I'm not going to make any money, but at least but I'm going to meet people.
And sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
You have to eat the shit of I'm not gonna, come out with a net
Yep.
positive, but I'll break even,
Yeah.
and I can just sustain until the next one, and I'll break even on that one, and then
Totally.
eventually I will get to the point where now I'm making money,
It's
and now it's
exactly
profitable.
it's exactly what you hope happens. Artists get paid in exposure a lot, and it's a terrible running joke, that the exposure is our currency now. But honestly, if you like, most artists that I think have a decent following, we all know that exposure is very powerful, and sometimes as important as just a paycheck. So yeah, I mean, thank God for the bands like Molly Tuttle, American Aquarium, Brant Cobb, Jason Isbell, these guys that have let me open for them, and try my stuff out, and on a crowd that knows better, on a crowd that's there to see someone who's good at what they do, and allow me to go up with a guitar and share my stories, and try it out and see what the response is. And that has given us the resources, but also the experience to come out here, really far from home, thousands of miles from home, to a place we've never gigged and toured before, and to say, okay, can I sway these audiences? Can I give them a good enough experience to where they want to come back? Time will tell, but we've had a good run so far.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens for you, man.
Thanks, man.
I think you're out here putting in some serious work.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see where that goes.
right on.
Um, do you want to plug your stuff where people can find you, where they can find all the tour information?
Yeah.
Grab some tickets.
Yeah, totally. So the website where you can find pretty much everything, merch, tour information, bio, all upcoming news, is Gabe Lee, TN.com. So it's Gabe Lee, LEETN.com. And we love when folks follow our Bands in Town. Bands in Town's great for figuring out. Really, it's great for us because, like, for most folks who follow Bands in Town, it's like kind of an extra email in their inbox. But for us, it gives us metrics. So it tells us the ticket click links, and it tells us how many pre-sales are happening at such and such venue. So it really does help artists out, Bands in Town. And then, the Instagram, Spotify, Apple, uh, and Facebook, all those platforms where you can follow us and listen to us, are helpful as well. Obviously for their own spoken reasons. But yeah, so we're as far as I know, I mean, the rest of this year we've got a bunch of great dates. We will be out here briefly again in Camino, California. I hope to be back more and more often. I'm trying to make this my life. So anywhere you hear of of anywhere you hear of my tour coming through, or bands that I'm affiliated with, please support the venues that are having us. Support our music, buy our merch. Yeah, Mr. Gabe Lee is the handle on most of my socials. So
Okay, well, Gabe, this was a lot of fun, man.
heck
I
yeah,
really appreciate you coming
what
on
a
and
blast.
chatting with me. We'll definitely have to do this again next time you're rolling through. Maybe
Oh,
we'll
I'd love
break
to
out the
do a
whiskey.
Heck yeah. I'd love to do a rehash and see where we are in a
Yeah.
year or two.
That'll be
Right?
fun.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you.
All right, Gabe Lee, you're awesome, man. Hopefully people will check out your site, pick up some vinyl. It was a lot of fun, man, really.
Right back at you. Thank you, man.